Hello and happy Tuesday. So, I want to really quick go through some key things that happened in the first half of Act 2 of the play. Before I do, though, I want to just give you guys a quick reminder that you need to be reading your independent reading novels. Your first, quiz journal entry thing is coming up after the break. Okay, so we've got the break coming up here at the end of the week. So make sure that you guys are kind of staying caught up with that reading. You need to be about halfway through your novel after the Easter break. So just make sure that you're on top of that. Okay, so we got into Act 2 of the play, and there are a few things that I want to make sure you guys understood. So in my video yesterday, I told you to kind of pay attention to the relationship between Elizabeth and Proctor and how that's kind of playing out and why that might be. So we get some hints as to their relationship at the very beginning of the act. Okay, things are kind of awkward. They're not really like engaging in deep conversation. They're just offering each other very short responses. It's all very superficial, like, how was your day? How's the harvest? Blah, blah, blah. And when John tries to show her some affection, with a certain disappointment, he returns to the table because he's not satisfied with the way that she reciprocates his affection. As we keep reading, we find out that Elizabeth actually, I'll come back to that section, but that Elizabeth actually knows about the affair, and they start arguing about it, right? So we know that Proctor and Abigail had an affair, had relationships, but it turns out Elizabeth knows this as well. And when she tries to calmly talk to Proctor about it and explain why she's feeling the way that she's feeling, Proctor just kind of starts yelling at her, you will not judge me more, Elizabeth. I have good reason to think before I charge fraud. She's like, he's just really just kind of stopping her from accusing him of being untrue to her. And he says this line, which I think is just really telling of his character. He's like, you forget nothing and forgive nothing. Learn charity, woman. I have gone tiptoe in this house all 7 months since she is gone. I have not moved from there to there without I think to please you, and still an everlasting funeral marches round your heart. No more. I should have roared you down when first you told me your suspicion, but I wilted, and like a Christian I confessed. Confessed! Some dream I have must have mistaken you for God that day, but you're not, and let you remember it. Look you sometime for the goodness in me, and judge me not. So these are actually really harsh words from Proctor, especially since Elizabeth is just trying to get him to, kind of go talk to Abigail first of all, and tell him how she feels. So we have this really tense relationship between the two as they're trying to work through this affair and continue their marriage together. But then we also get all of these little hints about how things are kind of developing in Salem. And the first hints that we get are with Elizabeth and what she's heard from Mary Warren. She says it is a proper court they have now, meaning that like the trials have gone to court and people are being tried for witchcraft in court. They've sent 4 judges out of Boston, she says, waiting magistrates of the general court, and at the head sits the deputy governor of the province. So this is kind of a big deal. There's a lot of official people that have come to town, and Elizabeth says there be 14 in the jail now, and the court have power to hang them too. The deputy governor promises hanging if they'll not confess John. The town's gone wild, I think. She speak of Abigail, and I thought she were a saint to hear her. Abigail brings the other girls into court, and where she walks, the crowd will part like the sea for Israel, and folks are brought before them. And if they scream and howl and fall to the floor, the person's clapped in jail for bewitching them. So we get a kind of an image here from Elizabeth, from what she's heard from Mary Warren about how these trials are going, right? Abigail is walking on water in this town. Like, the people think that she is the greatest thing to have ever touched down on the earth. They think she's an angel because she's uncovering all of this witchcraft in the town, right? And this line here that I have highlighted, folks are brought before them. Okay, so that would be the accused people are brought into the court where all of these girls are sitting and helping with these trials. And if they, meaning the girls, scream and howl and fall to the floor, okay, so if they put on some sort of show, like they're being bewitched by some somehow, right? And fall to the floor, the person that's on trial is put in jail for bewitching them. So really, this group of young girls is in charge of all of these people's lives that are being tried. And we get even more of this information when Mary Warren shows up. So let me just get to that page here. So Mary Warren comes back to the house. She lives with the Proctors, okay? So she's their servant, and remember, she gets paid. This was not uncommon in this time period to pay a young girl to help out with your home and give her lodging and food as well. So Mary Warren comes back from the court, and she has made Elizabeth a puppet, and a puppet is just a doll. Okay, so just like a little doll made of like cloth or something that she had sewn while she was in court. And this comes into play in the second half of Act 2. So it's going to be important that you remember that. But Mary Warren tells us this: there be 39 now. So now there are 39 people who have been arrested and are being tried as witches. And the first one has been sentenced to hang for witchcraft, which is Goody Osborne. And then Sarah Good, Mary Warren tells us, Sarah Good will not hang, for Sarah Good confessed. So what we're learning from Mary Warren is that there's all these people that are condemned, but if they confess to witchcraft, then they're not hanged. So what's to stop them from falsely confessing just to spare their lives? And Proctor brings this up later on in the act as well, right? And then we have this little section where Mary Warren is talking about Sarah Good and how she believes that Sarah Good used to like put spells on her and curse her and stuff like that. So she said, I never knew it before. I never knew anything before. When she came to the court, I say to myself, I must not accuse this woman, for she sleeps in ditches and so very old and poor. Okay, so this is a homeless person, right, that they're accusing. But then she sit there denying and denying, and I feel a misty coldness climbing up my back, and the skin on my skull begin to creep, and I feel a clamp around my neck, and I cannot breathe air. And then I hear a voice, screaming voice, and it were my voice, and all at once I remember everything she done to me. And so she goes on to say, so many times, Mr. Proctor, she come to this very door begging bread and a cup of cider, and mark this, whenever I turned her away empty, she mumbled. Okay, so here is Mary Warren spinning this tale, and she's thinking that she feels all of these things in the court. We don't know whether or not she's actually feeling these things, right? Because still the town is so up in arms. But have you ever, like, let's say I've been watching a scary movie or something. Okay, here's my example. Like, I used to watch The Walking Dead religiously, right? And then anytime I would be walking by myself at night, I would feel like there were zombies following me, right? And like a zombie was going to pop out of the trees at any moment. When you are surrounded or immersed in something that brings forth a certain emotion, you almost start to feel that emotion in your real life. Even though, like, if I think through it logically, I know that zombies aren't real and there weren't actually zombies waiting to attack me, but I just get so like wrapped up in that idea that I almost feel like it's going to happen. So this is something that we have to kind of consider with these girls, right? There's so many of them. And they have this leader, Abigail, who is really controlling and very scary. And we saw that in Act 1 with her threat to kill the girls, essentially, if they revealed anything. And you have this group of girls that's like putting on this show and painting this picture, and they're so immersed in it that I believe she truly does think that she was feeling all of these things, right? And whether she is or not, we will find out later. And then she mentions, and this is really important, so they're talking about it, and Proctor threatens to like whip her for everything that she's doing because she's not listening to him and she wants to go back to court. And he's like, no, you have to stay and work at the house like we're paying you to do. And she says, in a moment like of trying to protect herself from a whipping, I saved her life today, as she points at Elizabeth. So we find out from Mary Warren that Elizabeth is indeed accused, or not fully accused, but somewhat mentioned, Mary Warren says. But I said, I never seen no sign you ever sent your spirit out to hurt no one, and seeing I do live so closely with you, they dismissed it. So somebody, wonder who it was, mentioned Elizabeth's name in court as somebody who is potentially a witch, right? Now, Elizabeth, of course, suspects that it is, let's see, we don't need to talk about that one, but Elizabeth suspects that it's Abigail that said her name, right? And so Elizabeth, once Mary Warren goes to bed, asks Proctor this question: would you favor me with this? So would you do me this favor? Go to Abigail. Okay. And she's asking her husband to go talk to Abigail because she says there's a promise made in any bed. Spoke or silent, a promise is surely made, and she may dote on it now, I'm sure she does, and thinks to kill me, then take my place. She dare not call out such a farmer's wife, but there be monstrous profit in it. She thinks to take my place, John. So Elizabeth is really scared at her name being mentioned because she knows that Abigail is ruthless, right? And she thinks that Abigail is still in love with her husband, which is probably true from what we've seen, right? And Elizabeth is feeling like Abigail's trying to murder her so that she can become Proctor's wife and replace her in the house. And then we get Hale visiting. So Reverend Hale comes to visit. And the reason for his visit, did I miss it? Where is it? Well, the reason for his visit is because he's coming to kind of determine if their household is pure. But again, we learn more from him, right? We learn that Rebecca Nurse has been charged for witchcraft. Okay, and then Hale says, I thought, sir, to put some questions as to the Christian character of this house, if you'll permit me. So he wasn't sent by the court. He's just coming of his own accord to try to discover whether or not the Proctors are Christian people. And remember, John Proctor, he has not been to church very often. He has badmouthed Paris in front of everybody because he doesn't like him. And he continues to kind of speak out against Paris. So this section right here, Proctor's really speaking out. And this was kind of the section that I wanted you guys to end at for your reading today. But Proctor is speaking out against Paris in this last section that you guys read. He said, since we built the church, there were pewter candlesticks upon the altar. So just regular, normal candlesticks. Francis Nurse made them, and a sweeter hand never touched the metal. But Paris came, and for 20 weeks he preached nothing but golden candlesticks until he had them. I labor the earth from dawn of day till blink of night, and I tell you true, when I look to heaven and see my money glaring at his elbows, it hurt my prayer, sir. It hurt my prayer. I think sometimes the man dreams cathedrals, not clapboard meeting houses. So really here, Proctor is again just kind of bashing Paris and saying that he cares more about his looks and how his church looks. He wanted these golden candlesticks to replace the normal, like, run-of-the-mill ones that they had, and he wouldn't stop talking about golden candlesticks until he got them. And Proctor is basically saying, when I go to church and I see my hard-earned money put into the candlesticks on the altar, I have a problem with that. And we can't blame him for that, right? So there's a lot of interesting dynamics going on here, and the rest of Act 2 is really going to show those different dynamics playing out. So for your guys' homework tonight, you are going to finish reading Act 2, finish filling out the study guide. Tomorrow you will have a quiz over Act 2, and we're actually going to just jump right in and start Act 3 tomorrow as well. And the acts get shorter and shorter and shorter. Okay, so Act 3 is going to be shorter than Act 2 was as well, so it won't be a ton of work for you guys to do tomorrow. So that was, we got some stuff that's starting to happen. It's pretty exciting. I love this part of the play. This is where things really start to pick up and stuff starts to go down, if you will. So if you have any questions over this at all, make sure to hop on my office hours from 9:50 to 10:40. But have the best of luck and go do your homework. I'll talk to you tomorrow.